The broadcast began with no warning. Screens across the galaxy flickered, hijacked by an untraceable transmission. A cold, mechanical voice broke the silence. By order of the Galactic Empire, the execution of 60,000 insurgents commences now. There was no prelude, no justification beyond the word insurgents. The camera focused on a stark, metallic gallows stretching into the shadowed horizon. Thousands of figures stood in line, hands bound behind their backs, faces obscured by the dim lighting. Each prisoner moved with hollow steps toward their doom, as if drained of any resistance or hope. The silence was unbearable. No cries, no pleas, only the eerie hum of machinery as a conveyor system moved bodies through the process with mechanical precision. The gallows activated with brutal efficiency. Trapdoors opened, bodies fell, and the next prisoner stepped forward. It was systematic, inhuman, and designed to evoke terror. Across countless planets, sentient beings watched in horrified silence. The transmission was unavoidable, overriding personal and public networks alike. Each viewer became an unwilling witness to the atrocity, bound by the Empire's calculated cruelty. The absence of faces only amplified the horror. The victims could be anyone anywhere. On Earth, chaos erupted. People flooded into streets, their voices raised in collective outrage. Governments scrambled for answers, demanding to know why the Galactic Council had allowed this. News outlets played the footage on repeat, anchoring their broadcasts, with expert panels dissecting every frame. The facelessness of the event left a universal question in its wake. What kind of power could perpetrate such a crime without even showing its face? Among the viewers was Ambassador Elise Sorin. She sat alone in her chambers aboard a neutral starbase, watching the transmission in stunned silence. The execution concluded with the same monotone voice. Let this be a reminder. Resistance is futile. Obey and live. The feed cut abruptly, leaving Elise staring at her reflection in the now blank screen. Her hands trembled as she reached for her communicator, not to call for assistance or comfort, but to record her immediate thoughts. This is wrong. This cannot go unanswered. Her voice cracked, but she pushed forward, letting her anger give her strength. 60,000 lives, erased in moments. No trial, no defense, just a statement of power. The recording paused as tears blurred her vision. She wiped them away quickly, forcing herself to refocus. The Empire had to be confronted, no matter the risk. But as a diplomat, she knew the odds. Humanity was new to interstellar politics, an emerging power with neither the resources nor the alliances to challenge the Empire. The Galactic Council had long been paralyzed by fear of imperial retaliation. Still, Elise's resolve hardened. If no one else would speak for the dead, then she would. Not because she was uniquely qualified, but because it was the right thing to do. She replayed the execution in her mind, committing every detail to memory. This atrocity would not be forgotten. Her next step was clear. Justice had to be demanded. Elise Sorin stood before the massive chamber of the Galactic Council, its vaulted ceiling and gleaming architecture meant to symbolize unity. Yet, today, it felt empty, hollow, a monument to the failure of interstellar cooperation. The room was filled with representatives from hundreds of species, their expressions ranging from stoic indifference to quiet apprehension. The Empire's seat loomed at the center, occupied by a featureless automaton envoy, a faceless extension of their dominance. Elise took a deep breath, clutching the data crystal in her hand. Every word she planned to say was etched in her mind, yet her heart pounded as she stepped forward. The execution footage had circulated galaxy-wide, but no one had dared to challenge the Empire openly. Even the Council's emergency session had only been convened after Elise had invoked Earth's sovereign rights with relentless pressure. When she began to speak, her voice was steady, but the anger beneath it was unmistakable. Esteemed members of the Council, Today, I stand before you not as a representative of Earth, but as a voice for the voiceless. 60,000 lives were stolen in a single day, without trial, without mercy, without even the dignity of recognition. They were reduced to shadows, stripped of their faces, and erased from existence by the Galactic Empire. Her words echoed through the chamber, cutting through the heavy silence. And yet, we remain silent. We convene here as if debate can soothe the anguish of a galaxy forced to watch such horror. Where is our collective resolve? Where is justice? Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some avoided her gaze, while others stared at her with guarded interest. Elise pressed on, her voice rising. Humanity has seen this before. On our own world, we have lived through the horrors of unchecked power. We know the weight of tyranny, the cost of indifference. Our history is scarred with the lessons we had to learn through unimaginable pain. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. We vowed never to forget, never to allow it to happen again, on our world or any other. That is why I am here. Not to ask for permission, but to demand accountability. The Empire's actions are not just a violation of interstellar law. They are a violation of the very principles this council was founded to protect. The Empire's automaton envoy activated, its voice as emotionless as the execution broadcast. The Empire enforces order. Those executed were insurgents, guilty of rebellion against lawful governance. This is not a matter for council intervention. Elise turned to face it directly. Order? What you call order, I call fear. What you call governance, I call oppression. You may silence your victims, but you cannot silence the truth. The galaxy has seen what you are, and we will not look away. Her gaze swept across the chamber. To my fellow delegates, if we do nothing, if we allow this atrocity to stand, we are complicit. Ask yourselves, when the Empire turns its gaze to your people, who will speak for you? A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some delegates nodded subtly, their resolve beginning to stir. But the fear of imperial retaliation loomed large. Elise knew she was planting seeds, not reaping results, yet she refused to waver. We have a choice, she said, her voice unwavering. We can be remembered as the generation that stood against tyranny, or as the one that let it consume us all. I know where humanity stands. Now where will you stand? She stepped back, the silence that followed her words heavier than before. The automaton envoy remained still, its blank visage offering no acknowledgement. But Elise didn't need its response. Her message was meant for those who still had hearts. The Galactic Council adjourned without action. Elise had expected as much, but the lack of immediate support stung. As she returned to her quarters, messages flooded in from Earth's leaders. Some were supportive, praising her courage, while others were laced with thinly veiled warnings to tread carefully. Humanity couldn't afford to provoke the Empire, they said. Elise ignored the latter. Humanity wasn't alone in its outrage. As the footage spread, whispers of dissent grew louder across the galaxy. Elise began receiving encrypted communications from unexpected sources. Diplomats, activists, and even defectors from other species who had suffered under the Empire's rule. They shared intelligence resources, and above all, their willingness to fight back. One such message came from a Xyranian scientist, an expert in communication technologies. They provided Elise with access codes to disrupt the Empire's tightly controlled media networks. If the Empire can broadcast terror, the scientist wrote, then we can broadcast hope. Elise forwarded the codes to Earth, where engineers and hackers quickly devised a plan. Within days, humanity's voice echoed across the Empire's own channels. The message was simple. Images of the faceless gallows juxtaposed with images of liberated worlds, historical footage of Earth's own struggles against tyranny, and a single phrase in dozens of languages. Resistance is not futile. It is necessary. The response was immediate. On Imperial-occupied planets, small acts of defiance began to surface, sabotaged machinery, destroyed propaganda, citizens refusing to comply with Imperial decrees. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Elise knew the power of symbols, and humanity's defiance was becoming a rallying cry. Meanwhile, Earth's military strategists worked tirelessly to prepare for the inevitable. The Empire's might was unparalleled, but humanity had one advantage: creativity. Where the Empire relied on brute force and fear, humanity excelled in unconventional warfare. A small team of human operatives, aided by volunteers from sympathetic species, launched a daring mission to intercept an Imperial fleet en route to another rebellious planet. The operation was meticulously planned, relying on stealth and precision rather than overwhelming firepower. Using experimental cloaking technology and a deep knowledge of the Empire's predictable tactics, the team disabled the fleet's command ship and forced the remaining vessels to retreat. The footage of the mission, deliberately leaked to the galaxy, was electrifying. It showed humans and their allies working together, not just to fight, but to save. The prisoners aboard the Empire's transports were freed, their stories spreading like wildfire. They spoke not only of their rescue, but of humanity's determination to stand against oppression. Elise watched the reports flood in, her heart swelling with pride. It wasn't just humanity rising up anymore, it was the galaxy. Species that had long remained silent were beginning to speak out, inspired by humanity's resolve. Even among the Council, murmurs of discontent with the Empire grew louder. But Elise knew the battle was far from over. The Empire would not take these challenges lightly. What mattered now was keeping the momentum alive, showing the galaxy that resistance was not only possible, it was inevitable. The Empire responded to the growing rebellion with unrelenting force. Entire fleets descended on defiant worlds, determined to crush the uprisings before they could spread further. Propaganda broadcasts replaced the hopeful messages Elise and her allies had worked so hard to disseminate. The Empire claimed the resistance was futile, portraying humanity as reckless instigators of chaos. But the galaxy had seen too much. The faceless executions, the liberations, and the stories of hope had taken root. For every act of imperial repression, another act of defiance emerged. Elise and her coalition worked tirelessly, coordinating their efforts across dozens of systems. Resources were scarce, and the risks were immense, but the growing solidarity among species fueled their resolve. The turning point came when the coalition intercepted evidence of the Empire's next move, a plan to wipe out an entire planetary population as an example to the rest of the galaxy. Elise knew they had to act decisively. Through her network, she called for a last-ditch effort to confront the Empire head-on. Humanity would lead the charge, but it would take the combined strength of every species willing to stand against tyranny to succeed. The coalition's fleet, a patchwork of ships from dozens of worlds, met the Empire's armada near the targeted planet. Outnumbered and outgunned, they relied on ingenuity and coordination to exploit the Empire's rigid tactics. Humanity's unconventional strategies proved crucial once again. They used decoys to draw Imperial forces into ambushes and hacked the Empire's communication systems to sow confusion among their ranks. As the battle raged in space, ground teams infiltrated the Empire's command center on the planet's surface. Elise herself led the diplomatic effort from a command ship, broadcasting messages to the galaxy as the conflict unfolded. She reminded them of the stakes, of the lives at risk, and of the moral imperative to resist. The galaxy watched in real time as the coalition forces fought not just for one planet, but for the freedom of all. Against all odds, the Imperial fleet began to falter. The coalition's unity and determination proved too much for the Empire's fractured and overextended forces. When the dust settled, the coalition stood victorious. The Empire's flagship, once thought invincible, had been destroyed. The surviving Imperial forces retreated, their grip on the galaxy irreparably weakened. On the targeted planet, citizens emerged from hiding to embrace their liberators, their joy a stark contrast to the horror the Empire had intended to unleash. Elise stood before the Galactic Council once more, this time with undeniable proof of the Empire's atrocities and the Coalition's triumph. She spoke not of revenge, but of justice. "We did not fight to conquer," she declared. "We fought to protect, to defend the principles we all claim to hold dear. Now, we must ensure that such tyranny never rises again." The Council voted unanimously to strip the Empire of its standing and impose sanctions that would dismantle its remaining power. For the first time in generations, the galaxy glimpsed the possibility of lasting peace. As Elise returned to her quarters, exhausted but hopeful, she reflected on what humanity had achieved. They had not only resisted oppression, but inspired an entire galaxy to stand together. In the end, it wasn't humanity's technology or might that had made the difference. It was their unyielding belief in justice and their willingness to fight for it against all odds.